I'm Nick House. I'm the CEO of a company called Digital Modus. And where we're at is we're in growth mode at the moment, but we're always with a view to looking at an exit at some stage, and quite flexible about how that might happen. We've already been approached, so we're kind of approaching 2 years in, and we've already been approached, but I don't think it's quite right for us just yet. I think we're one of those companies that it's a group of people that came together with a variety of different skill sets, people that knew each other from previous engagements, and what we do is provide professional services around ICT implementations, but particularly around Salesforce as a technology into public sector as a marketplace, and that's a key growth area. Salesforce, everybody knows the kind of trajectory and growth that those guys are on, and for each implementation they need a services delivery partner, and we're one of the good ones of those. It's always been on the plan around an exit, but I think looking at the growth in the marketplace that we have, that we operate in, I think that gives us a significant raft of opportunities to explore exit at probably an earlier stage than some other people might do. There are lots of people that need either, kind of boutique or strategic suppliers of services in the Salesforce economy, and we're developing a pretty good reputation as somebody who actually delivers in that area. And for us, as I said, that's the thing that's really opened up the doors. I've been in the public sector for far too many years that I want to own up to, and Rachel's always been somebody that I've followed from afar. There's a lot of things that she's done in the past that I really admire and appreciate, and I like the way that she operates. That for me is pretty straightforward, says it like it is happy to engage in a really deep conversation, and certainly for our business, that's the way that we want to operate. It was relatively easy as soon as I saw that Rachel had put something together around an 8-figure exit. It was, well, why wouldn't we do that? Expert advice from somebody you admire, somebody who's done it, somebody who's been there, somebody who obviously kind of talks the same kind of language that you do. It seems like it's a well-made marriage in that regard. As a CEO of a business, you're always looking at, what are my best options? What can I do here? What's right for me? And there are a number of things that you have to consider for our businesses. It's not just, kind of who can come along and offer what appears to be the most X amount times for exit, for value, etc. It's all about who's right for your business, who's going to fit with the culture of your organization, who's going to help you to really focus in on driving towards maximizing that exit value. And certainly from the other sources that I looked at, other people that I spoke to, Rachel was the most appropriate for us at that time point. I think at the moment for us, it's not what value did she bring, it's what value is she bringing. So those things that I certainly need, as a growing business, you spend probably far too much time with your nose pressed against the grindstone and doing things, and having somebody that's been there, done it before, and having a conversation where you're able to lift your head up and maybe have that different conversation. So I think that's really key. In those conversations that we have, there's always an element of previous advice. Here's how I did it. What do you think? And I think that's a great thing for me. It's that question back about not just this is how I did it, go away and try it that way. With Rachel, there's always what do you think? How does that apply to your business? An element of challenge back to us as an organization in terms of making us think about what we're doing with the business, how the business is growing, etc. So that as a series of conversations as a CEO is really the most valuable thing that we're getting at the moment. There's a lot of things that we're obviously doing that most people do as, when you're starting to build a business and you've got an eye on exit, there are things that you just need to be doing. And, as I said to Rachel once, it's not my first rodeo in terms of doing this, but it's always great to have that advice and guidance just from somebody else who's also been there and done it and has been very successful at doing that, and provides that constant challenge back to think about different things, think about it in this way. Are you sure that's right? So that's what she's doing for us. With the grafter process and the eight-figure exit process, there are a series of advice and guidance things that you can take, and you follow those through. And she's helping us to make sure that we do things like start to capture all of the right kind of documentation for the business very, very early on. That's absolutely key. Really refine what our message is, and that's one of the areas where we're very busy, and we probably still need to focus in on that, because that helps with finding who your target audience is. She's helped us with that. Who are the kind of people that you would want to be looking at. So you go through a series of modules, and as you approach the end of that, what you've ended up doing is pretty much building your pitch deck when you're ready to take that to prospective purchasers of the organization, or alternatively, if we're looking for additional funding, to take it to VCs as well, because it's pretty much the same thing that you would actually use. Kind of a number of elements of support across the whole grafter organization. So we've looked at eight-figure exit. We're going to go on and look at the new program of work that Rachel's got as well. And I think the additional support that she's brought is with just the plethora of people that she knows intimately and can have a good conversation with. For us, she's opened up a couple of doors, so that's that's magic bonus on the end of everything else that we're getting. And I think that's huge amount of value. And also not just opening the doors, but how do you have the right kind of conversation with those kind of people, articulate ourselves well as a business to those kind of people based off of the introduction. And these people are at quite senior levels. So for us, certainly that's a huge added benefit that we get out of working with Rachel. But the program itself is it's programmatic. It makes us go back and focus. In some regards, I think Rachel and I have had this discussion. I think we're quite similar. Bright, new, shiny is always good to go to, and on occasion, you do need to have that, that thing that you need to go back to and say, right, let's do the foundation work. And she's quite good at pointing me back at that as well. Probably not right at the moment. I think there's, don't get me wrong, between now and potential exit, there's plenty of hurdles that maybe we could, trip over or trip ourselves up before trying to leap over, or even just fall over those hurdles. But I think it's having somebody there in the background that you can go and talk to and have that conversation. On occasion, it's relatively lonely when you sit up there on this kind of supposed lofty perch. I tend to try and think of my organization as I'm the one at the bottom trying to support everybody else, but it's quite lonely being there sometimes, and you need somebody else who's been there, done it, seen it, etc. And sometimes it's just commiserations, other times it's really, really good practical advice. But I think that value long term is just that experience and that sharpness of comms, albeit the comms are quite frequent, it always gets pretty much straight to the point. I would always say, evaluate it, understand it, and know that it's right for your business at that particular time. I think as the grafter evolves, I think dealing with people in different circumstances is going to be of benefit to the grafter as a wider organisation. So, I can only talk for myself. As I said previously, Rachel and I think are very much on the same kind of page from a how we operate perspective. So it very much works for me. I think, having that broad cohort of experiences that the grafter are going to go through as they grow as well will help to benefit a lot more people. But I think that the advice and guidance is, it's got to work for you, and you've got to know that it's going to work for you. I don't know how you articulate that more tightly. I'm very much gut reaction person, and gut reaction very early on said, yep, this is what we need to do, and that's been substantiated by my fellow directors as well. So it's right for us as a business because of the way that we operate and the speed at which we operate.